Hi, everyone. I'm Carey Pena. Thank you so much for watching Carey Pena Reports and for joining us on iTunes and Stitcher. And you can always see our shows on Facebook at Carey Pena or on our site, inspiredmedia360.com. The question we are asking today, will marijuana soon be legal in Arizona? This has been a hot topic, as most of you know, all across the country. And voters here in Arizona are about to make a very big decision. And it's a contentious topic. We want to try to get to a debate today and have both sides weigh in. And joining me in studio today to talk about this, Glenn Hammer, President and CEO of the Arizona Chamber of Commerce, who is strongly against Prop 205. Glenn, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
And JP Holyoke, who is chair of the Prop 205 campaign. JP, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, Carey. It's good to see you again.
So, JP, I want to start with you. This proposition aims to grant adults 21 and older the freedom to possess, buy, and grow personal amounts of cannabis and sets up a limited system of retail shops where people could buy cannabis products. Why do we need this?
Well, we have a history of prohibition in this country that's been an abject failure. We started off with alcohol prohibition. Obviously, that didn't work. And prohibition of marijuana has been equally problematic and ultimately a failure. So the choices that we have is really not yes marijuana or no marijuana, but really are we going to tax and regulate the marijuana that's already existing that's out there and then send those tax dollars to our schools? Or are we going to keep it illegal for the enrichment of criminal drug dealers? That's really the choice that we are faced with today.
And Glenn, why do you stand so strongly against this? One of the arguments that they've been making throughout the campaign is that Arizona stands to gain financially over $100 million in tax revenue.
That's just not accurate. When you take a look at the failed Colorado experiment, the amount of resources that are now required to go into law enforcement and all the other costs associated with this scheme far outweigh any dollars that might flow in. I mean, one of the school superintendents in Colorado basically said the only thing that we've really gotten in Colorado is more marijuana. And you take a look at the statistics in Colorado, it's a terribly failed experiment. Traffic fatalities are up. Youth use is up. Colorado is now #1 in the country when it comes to youth use. We're making great strides in this state. And this is something that we believe would take us backwards.
Well, there is an ad running, I believe that just started running, right, by Arizonans for Responsible Drug Policy. And if I read this in the New Times, so I want to be clear, I didn't see the ad. But if I understand it correctly, they do take aim at what is being hailed as this financial windfall, saying that Colorado has not gained and that, in fact, the school systems are losing.
Yeah, that advertisement has been roundly debunked by most of the news outlets in the state because it says Denver schools received nothing. Now, Arizona's tax system is different than Colorado's. In Colorado, the first $40 million that they receive went to schools. Now, they've actually allocated all $40 million, and it's capped at $40 million. The way that their system works is that the school districts then apply for that money from the state, and the way the application process works is it heavily favors the rural districts that frankly need the money. So they say Denver schools received nothing, and they're actually correct because Denver School District didn't apply for any of the money either. So it's entirely misleading to say that they got nothing out of this.
Glenn?
To say that this is going to help our education system is asinine. We took a leading role in the proposition that just recently passed to get $3.5 billion of new dollars into our schools over the next 10 years. That's the right way to do it. The wrong way is to try to promote a scheme that we know from what's going on in Colorado and other states that have gone down this road is going to lead to increased youth. We know that when kids use this, their IQs go down. There's all sorts of problems associated with this. Again, you look at Colorado and why there are a steady stream of Colorado officials coming to Arizona. Yes, the weather's better now. That's I'm sure part of it.
You pay them.
But no, I think when the mayor of Colorado Springs comes out, he's doing it because he feels very strongly that it's been a failed experiment in Colorado. And you take a look at the story after story in Colorado, homelessness now in the Denver area up. All of these associated costs, society has to pay, not the merchants of pot that stand to profit.
And you have referred to this on multiple occasions as a scheme. JP, how do you answer that?
Well, the opposition on this side is simply making things up, and it's factually incorrect. I'd go as far as to say is they're simply flat out lying, because I've got the data sitting here right in front of me. This is the Healthy Kids Colorado survey, and this is actually a much larger sample size than the survey that they like to quote, and it actually shows teenage use is down since legalization. Now, it's not down much, but to say that it's gone up is an absolute farce.
Isn't impaired driving, the increase in potential impairment when people drive, isn't that a realistic concern?
There's no question about it. People should not be impaired by any substance, whether it's legal or illegal. But the fact remains that people are out there consuming marijuana today. It's not like we've seen usage spikes in
An
Colorado.
estimated 600,000 users in Arizona. Is that an accurate number?
That's what the JLBC, they put out 587,100. That's the number. So it's really hard to say that prohibition works when almost 600,000 people in this state regularly consume marijuana. But they're buying it from the black market rather than from taxed and regulated stores.
Well, there's still a black market in Colorado, and I would just point out to people that this will still be an illegal substance under federal law. But the fact is, traffic fatalities have gone up in Colorado, and in fact, there's been a lot of national stories that nationally fatalities are going up. And let's think about this. Does it make any sense if people think that more people driving stoned on the roads is going to lead to safer roads? No, it's going to lead to more dead Arizonans. And it is absolutely true. Through the most credible statistics, youth use is going up in Colorado, period.
And I want to talk to you guys just for a moment here. We have a lot to get to, but I want to get a little bit of background on each of you personally. Glenn, you seem that you are personally offended outside of your role as the president and CEO of the Chamber of Commerce. You seem personally offended by this proposition.
Well, part of it, and it's not entirely JP's fault. Is what we have here is we have these out-of-state interests coming into Arizona and using our referendum system, our initiative process, and using the people of Arizona like guinea pigs. This is a national effort. I think they have this type of scheme on the ballot in 4 or 5 different states. We have a legislative process. And
who do you allege is behind that, though? Like marijuana growers or the industry of marijuana? I think it's the marijuana. JP can talk to that. I think it's the Marijuana Policy Project, if I have the name correct. And they've got this going on in 4 or 5 different states. Now, Arizona, this would be the most severe, and this is why. And part of this, again, is not JP's fault. But we have something in Arizona that doesn't allow for any changes to ballot initiatives. That's a big problem. Like Colorado, they had, I think JP would acknowledge, they had some serious problems, and the legislature made some changes. Like, for example, Colorado regulates the THC content. In Arizona, we would not be able to do that. So
that's not correct.
It is correct. If this passed, Arizona would wind up having the highest THC content. That's not what we want. We don't want to. We want to be number one in job creation, not number one for the most potent marijuana in the country.
Let's talk about that. When we look at essentially who's funding on both of these sides, the opposition has been funded by Insys Pharmaceuticals, which is an opioid manufacturer that's under investigation in 14 states, including Arizona, for its illegal sales practices of pushing opioids and fueling our opioid epidemic. They've also been funded by prison contractors. And then I have to ask you, there was a $498,000 dark money contribution that came in last week that Garrick Taylor, your representative, stated was for the purpose of hiding who those contributors were. So we know that.
Hang on.
Give me a break.
So the Chamber of Commerce made
this guy, my people would say, this guy is chutzpah. This is the guy that stands to benefit from this. So it's the pot peddlers and the national
Where's the money coming
groups.
from?
You tell me where your money's coming from. You tell
it's
me
disclosed.
from.
100%
it's not
disclosed.
baloney. It's disclosed. From is it from George Soros? Who is it coming from? It's coming from out-of-state interest. He doesn't want to talk about the facts. He doesn't want to talk about that 50%.
Let's talk about the facts.
He doesn't want to talk about that. Yeah, I don't think so. He doesn't want to talk about the 50% of the pot consumed in Colorado isn't smoke form. It is through edibles and things like this, and packaged things that kids can mistake. Gummy bears, Reese Piece type things. This is not a good piece of thoughtful legislation. It's 20 pages of gobbledygook that's designed to benefit the pot industry, and it's an experiment that we don't need in this state.
Okay, but Glenn, hang on, JP. Glenn, the Chamber of Commerce did make a big contribution with $500,000.
That's right.
Okay,
And we're proud of that. So this guy is going around attacking credible businesses in the state of Arizona.
Under investigation.
Every major chamber in the state of Arizona wants to see this pot initiative, this Get High initiative.
That's not true.
Defeated. Just about every. Yeah.
JP,
Greater Phoenix Chamber of Commerce, Greater Phoenix Leadership,
let's
Tucson
talk
Hispanic
about
Chamber,
hang on, just one
Yuma
second.
Chamber, Flagstaff Chamber. You go around the state. And why? Because they want to have healthy communities. They don't want to see more kids stoned. They don't want to see more of their loved ones injured or killed in traffic accidents. They want to have control over, they want to make sure that they have a safe workforce. This creates all sorts of problems for employers in terms of hiring and disciplining workers who are high on pot.
JP, I want to ask you specifically, because I've heard a lot of people bring that up, that this can be packaged in such a way where it looks like candy. And that is potentially a cause for great concern. What do you say about that?
No question about it. And this initiative absolutely addresses that issue. And it
How?
creates rules, regulations specifically for the packaging, marketing, advertising, and labeling with the pure intent of keeping it away from children. That's a simple fact. But I think, since I'm sitting here with the economic...
That's not how I read it.
Well,
that's not how we. How we read it.
That's fine. You can read it however you want, but it doesn't change the facts.
20 pages.
I know 20 pages reading is hard, but when we start looking at the economics of this, Colorado in 2014 had the fastest growing economy in the nation. In 2015, it was third. Forbes magazine listed their 190 best places in America to do business. It had 5 Colorado cities in the top 50. Arizona only had 1 city in the top 100. Maybe if the Chamber of Commerce spent more... Hey, let me finish. I let you finish.
JP, go ahead.
If the Chamber of Commerce spent more time working on actually economic and commerce issues, maybe Arizona would be doing as well as Colorado is, rather than fighting against social issues like this and providing funding to our schools instead.
Glenn, you want to respond?
We're doing better than Colorado. Forbes has Arizona as the number one fast-growing state in terms of future job growth, and it's nonsense to suggest that this is a way for the state to improve economically. You take a look at the tourism industry in Colorado, the Visit Denver, Visit Colorado.
Record highs.
Folks, no, they will say that it's causing all sorts of problems, because when you take a look at convention businesses, and let's remember, we're a big convention state here, when you have these issues related to public safety and people being homeless, it's not something that makes your state more attractive. And for a state like Arizona, where we have about 200,000 jobs in the tourism industry, this is not a positive. That's why you have also, the major Hotel and Lodging Association oppose this as well. So this is for economic development. This would be awful. We are moving in the right direction in this state. This is the type of thing that we think would be very counterproductive.
JP, I asked Glenn about his personal feelings, and I do want to touch on that with you as well, because that is a big part of your story. Your daughter is 7 years old, Reese, and just tell the viewers and the listeners a little bit about Reese and how you came, because for everyone's knowledge too, I think it is important to say that you are a conservative Republican.
I am, absolutely.
And you mentioned to me before the show started that prior to having Reese, you would have never been the person out there, a proponent of marijuana.
I wish with all my heart that I were still ignorant enough to be opposed to marijuana. My life would be very different if that were the case. But I'm not. And the reason is because I do have a special needs daughter who has been significantly impacted positively with marijuana. It's absolutely been nothing short of a miracle for her. And the same people and the exact same arguments that are being proposed today are the same arguments that were against medical marijuana back in 2010. In fact, as we sit here today, there's a current pending court case by the county attorney to overturn the medical marijuana law as if the voters had never passed it.
I want to talk to you, Glenn. Do you want to respond at all?
Well, this is not about medical marijuana, and I'm sure JP is a good dad, so we're not litigating the medical. We're litigating here. Does it make sense to make it easier for people to get stoned?
No,
legally?
and that's a fair point. I just think it is always important to understand where people are coming from.
Sure, and
there is a new poll out by OH Predictive Insights. This was conducted September 28th through the 30th, and it shows an increase, I guess, in support in the past month for Prop 205. But you guys are still lagging, JP. 43 to 47, 10% still undecided. So are you depending on young people to turn out? I mean, who are you trying to convince that Prop 205 should be passed in Arizona?
It's really interesting looking at that poll, because the poll is definitely going our direction, but that poll has also occurred after they started running their advertising. And I think that the public has realized that their advertising is fear-mongering scare tactics, and it's been debunked as not true. And that's why more and more people are saying, you know what, it makes sense to tax it and regulate it, send those dollars to our schools, rather than enrich criminal drug dealers. I think that people are simply catching on to this.
Glenn, what do you say about the polling and how you guys feel in the final few weeks, who you need to reach out to try to convince, from your point of view, that Prop 205 is no good for Arizona?
Well, we feel good that it's losing. So any poll that it's losing, we're happy to see those results. We're going to keep reaching out to all Arizona voters. We have law enforcement people that have made a very strong case against this. And I think the most compelling figures are those from Colorado that have seen the failed scheme in that state. And I just think these are really good people that come to Arizona and say this thing has harmed our kids. It's made our roadways more dangerous, and it's been also harmful in terms of workplace safety. So we're just going to keep getting our message out.
All right. Final words, JP?
Yeah, it's really interesting. Actually, the people of Colorado are actually in greater support of their legalization law today than they were the day that they passed it. This is a simple equation. This isn't about yes marijuana, no marijuana, or marijuana is good or marijuana is bad. You don't have to be in favor of marijuana to be opposed to prohibition. Prohibition's been a failure. And so this is politically driven. It's not economically driven. The economics are very clear on this, and I think Colorado is a great example of that. But the choice that we have is simple. Tax it and regulate it, keep it out of the hands of kids, send those dollars to our schools, or keep it illegal for criminal drug dealers to try to sell it to those teenagers and then remit those money back to the cartels.
All right. We do have to give Glenn the final word, and then we got to go, guys.
The choice is simple. Vote against this. Protect our kids. Protect our communities.
Gentlemen, I really appreciate you both being here, willing to sit next to one another and have this discussion. And thanks to all of you. My hope is just that everyone will get out the vote. That's what really is so important in all of this. You can always see our shows at inspiredmedia360.com. Take care.